My brothers and sisters, listen carefully. Some of the greatest transformations in your life will begin the moment you realize this simple truth. Allah doesn't isolate you to punish you, He isolates you to rebuild you. The reason so many people feel lost, overwhelmed, or broken is because they keep running back to the same crowds, the same habits, the same noise that is destroying their clarity. What you call loneliness might actually be Allah pulling you away from what's limiting your growth. And if you ignore that pull, you will stay spiritually stuck. But if you pay attention, your entire life can shift. When Allah wants to elevate you, He separates you. This is something most people don't like hearing, but it's the truth. When Allah wants to guide your heart, strengthen your mind, or purify your soul, He removes the noise around you. He distances you from certain friendships, relationships, circles and environments. Not because He wants you to suffer, but because He knows you will never grow while you're surrounded by the wrong influences or drowning in constant distraction. Look at the lives of the prophets. Before they reached their highest point, they all passed through moments of deep loneliness. Prophet Musa had to flee from his people and spend years alone before Allah brought him back with wisdom and purpose. Prophet Yunus found clarity and humility inside the belly of the whale, completely isolated from the world. Prophet Yusuf spent years away from his family, first in the well, then in slavery, then in prison, and it was that loneliness that shaped him for leadership. And our beloved Prophet Muhammad received revelation while alone in the cave of Hira, away from society, away from noise, away from the comfort of his daily life. Isolation is not accidental, it is preparation. You're no different. You also need moments where Allah removes the world from your ears so that you can hear your soul again. When you're constantly surrounded by people telling you what to do, who to be, how to live, how to think, you lose touch with who you actually are. You begin to live for approval, attention, and validation. And that destroys your connection with Allah faster than anything else. Sometimes the greatest mercy Allah gives you is silence, a pause, a distance, a moment where you're forced to sit with yourself and ask, where am I going? Who am I becoming? And where is Allah in my life? But what happens to most people? They panic. The moment friends stop calling, they feel rejected. The moment people pull away, they feel abandoned. The moment life slows down, they feel something is wrong. Yet the opposite might be true. Everything might finally be right. Because the loneliness you're feeling is not a punishment. It is Allah saying, you've relied too much on people, come back to me. Being surrounded is easy. Being alone takes courage. It requires emotional strength to sit with your own heart without distraction, to face your habits, your flaws, your wounds, your mistakes. Many people avoid solitude because they don't want to confront these truths. They would rather stay lost in company than found in silence. They would rather stay distracted than healed. But you cannot build a strong relationship with Allah until you disconnect from the world long enough to hear Him. When you're constantly running to people, you stop running to your Creator. You chase attention more than you chase guidance. You look for comfort in humans while ignoring the one who controls your destiny. This is why Allah separates you, not to break you, but to build you. Not to make you lonely, but to make you spiritually awake. You're not being pushed away from people, you're being pulled toward Allah. And yes, it feels uncomfortable at first. You may wonder, why is no one understanding me? Why do I feel different? Why do I suddenly feel disconnected from people I used to enjoy being around? Because you're outgrowing them. Allah is shifting your environment so your heart can shift with it. Your soul knows when a season of your life has ended, even before your mind accepts it. Sometimes people are removed from your life because their presence is delaying your growth. Sometimes friendships fade because they were draining your spirituality. Sometimes relationships break because Allah heard conversations you didn't, saw intentions you couldn't, and protected you from what would have destroyed your peace. So instead of asking, why am I alone? Start asking, what is Allah trying to teach me through this? Because the truth is, you will never hear your soul until the world becomes quiet. And you will never understand Allah's plan until He removes the distractions blocking your vision. Some of your best decisions, your biggest changes, your greatest healing will come from moments where you had no one but Allah to talk to. And those moments aren't meant to make you bitter, they're meant to make you better. When you stop running from loneliness and start sitting with it, you discover things about yourself that you never saw before. You realize how much strength you actually have. You recognize how much Allah has protected you. You begin to appreciate the guidance you once ignored. You finally become honest with yourself, and honesty is the beginning of transformation. So don't fear being alone. Fear being surrounded by people who distract you from your Lord. Fear staying in circles that pull you away from your purpose. Fear depending on people who were never meant to carry the weight you placed on them. Your soul speaks the loudest when the world is silent. And that silence is often the place where Allah plants the seeds of who you are becoming. Embrace the isolation. It's not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your elevation. Most people run away from solitude because they are terrified of meeting themselves. They fear the silence because silence doesn't lie. When the world goes quiet, your real thoughts rise to the surface. Your regrets appear. Your pain becomes louder. Your weaknesses show themselves. And for many that is uncomfortable. So they keep themselves busy. They cling to people. They scroll endlessly. They drown themselves in entertainment. Why? Because if they stop, even for a moment, they'll have to face what they've been avoiding for years. But my brothers and sisters, if you don't face yourself, you don't grow. If you don't acknowledge your wounds, they don't heal. If you don't sit with your own heart, you will never understand what is truly missing in your life. Solitude is not scary, it is necessary. It is where Allah reveals parts of your soul that noise keeps hidden. Sometimes Allah removes distractions not to punish you, but to give you clarity. He wants you to slow down long enough to see what's actually happening inside you. Many people move through life on autopilot, reacting, chasing, pleasing, escaping. They never stop to ask, am I happy? Is my heart alive? Is my relationship with Allah growing? Are my choices taking me closer to Jannah or further away? You cannot ask these questions while you're busy drowning in the world. When you're alone, you begin to notice patterns. You realize that certain habits are harming you, certain people are draining you, certain environments are darkening your heart. You discover that your attachment to people is stronger than your attachment to Allah. And that realization is uncomfortable, but it's also the beginning of your transformation. One moment of honest silence with yourself is worth more than a lifetime of fake happiness. You see, most people hide from solitude because they don't want to take responsibility. It's easier to blame others, to blame circumstances, to blame life. It's much harder to look in the mirror and say, I need to change, I need to do better, I need to fix my heart. But Allah loves those who are honest with themselves. Allah loves those who are humble enough to say, Ya Allah, I am struggling, help me grow. And that kind of humility is born in solitude, not in crowds. When you're alone, you reflect, you think about your past, you think about the mistakes you made, you think about the times you disobeyed Allah, you think about the opportunities you wasted. And at first, that reflection feels heavy. But slowly, it turns into repentance, it turns into awareness, it turns into a more mature version of you. This is why the heart softens in solitude. Away from the expectations of people, you finally get to be honest with yourself, and you discover that the one you truly need is Allah, not the world. People avoid solitude because it exposes their emotional dependency. They feel empty when they're alone, and they assume the solution is to bring more people into their life. But the truth is, your heart is empty because your connection with Allah is weak. No number of friends or relationships can fill a void that was meant to be filled by your Creator. The emptiness you feel is not loneliness, it's distance from Allah. And Allah uses solitude to close that distance. When you sit alone and your heart starts whispering, I need Allah, that is one of the greatest blessings you can ever receive, because that whisper will eventually turn into a dua, and that dua will turn into guidance, and that guidance will turn into a new version of you. Some people never discover who they truly are because they never sit with themselves long enough to hear their soul. They mask their sadness with laughter, their fear with distraction, their trauma with busyness. But emotional wounds don't disappear just because you ignore them. They stay, they shape your decisions, they affect your relationships, they influence your behavior. Solitude brings those hidden wounds to the surface so you can finally address them. It forces you to ask hard questions. Why am I anxious? Why do I feel empty? Why do I fear being alone? Why do I rely so heavily on people? What am I running from? And the answer to most of these questions is simple. You haven't spent enough time with yourself. You haven't spent enough time with Allah. You know the world, but you don't know your own heart. When you stop running from solitude and start embracing it, something powerful happens. You begin to understand your emotions better. You begin to see your triggers, your needs, your weaknesses. You become more self-aware. And self-awareness leads to self-improvement. You can't fix what you don't understand. Solitude builds emotional strength. It teaches you that you can survive without constant attention. It teaches you that you are capable of thinking deeply. It teaches you that you can rely on Allah even when there's no one beside you, and that independence, emotional, spiritual, mental, is what elevates your character. You become calmer, you become wiser, you stop overreacting, you stop chasing people, you stop begging for validation, you stop fearing rejection, you start valuing peace. You start valuing boundaries. You start valuing your connection with Allah above all else. That is the transformation solitude gives you if you stop resisting it. So don't be afraid of being alone. Be afraid of never knowing who you could have become because you were too afraid to sit quietly with your own heart. Solitude is where Allah prepares you, strengthens you, purifies you, and reshapes you. It is not the end of your journey, it's the beginning of the real one. When Allah removes someone from your life, don't chase them. Don't cling to what Allah is gently pulling you away from. Don't hold on to people whom Allah Himself is detaching you from. Because when Allah takes someone out of your life, there is always wisdom behind it, even if you don't see it immediately. Most people struggle with this because they believe that losing someone means they've lost something essential. They think their happiness, their confidence, their stability, or their peace was tied to that person. But the truth is, if someone was truly meant for your journey, Allah would never allow circumstances to separate you. And if He removed them, it's because He heard conversations you didn't saw actions behind your back, you never witnessed and understood intentions you couldn't read. Allah knows what you don't know. Allah sees what you cannot see. And Allah protects you from harm even when you are begging to keep that harm in your life. Some people leave your life because they were silently breaking you. They were draining your heart, influencing your character, or feeding your sins, and you didn't even realize it. You were too attached, too emotionally invested, too blinded by desire, comfort, or familiarity. And Allah, out of His mercy, removes them so you can breathe again, think again, and find yourself again. Many times, the pain you feel after someone leaves is not because they were good for you, it's because you built your life around them. You gave them a place in your heart that was never meant for any human, a place reserved only for Allah. Attachment to people becomes dangerous when it replaces your attachment to Allah. This is why Allah sometimes breaks those attachments, not to hurt you, but to free you. To free your heart from depending on what was temporary. To free your mind from relying on someone who wasn't capable of supporting you. To free your soul from giving its value to someone who never appreciated it. Some people's presence delays your growth. Their character drags you backward. Their influence weakens your discipline. Their energy kills your motivation. Allah sees this long before you do. And when He removes them, you feel pain only because you were holding on too tightly to something that was never yours to begin with. You see, the people Allah removes were never written into your destiny. They were seasonal, meant to teach you a lesson, not to stay forever. And when that lesson ends, their chapter closes. But humans struggle with closed chapters. We chase closure, explanations, apologies, clarity. But not every ending comes with answers. Sometimes the only answer is Allah protected you. If someone walks out of your life, let them walk. If they distance themselves, let them distance. If they stop choosing you, let them go. Because when you chase people, you're indirectly telling Allah, I trust them more than your plan for me. Don't let your desperation block the blessings Allah is trying to give you. When someone leaves, it often means your next chapter requires a new environment, new influences, and new strength. You cannot grow properly in soil that is unhealthy. You cannot elevate while you're surrounded by people who want to keep you low. You cannot become who Allah destined you to be if you're attached to people who are not part of that destiny. Sometimes the people you pray to keep are the very people Allah removes because they would destroy your future. Sit with that truth. Allah does not take anything away without giving you something better, but the better only arrives when you stop running after what He removed. Growth requires space emotionally, mentally, spiritually. When Allah takes someone away, He is making space in your heart for new wisdom, new clarity, new blessings, new relationships that are healthier, cleaner, more aligned with your deen. You might not see it now. you might feel abandoned, betrayed, or confused. But later, sometimes much later, you look back and realize that the removal was the turning point. It was the moment Allah redirected your life. Many of the greatest blessings in your life come disguised as painful separations. And remember this, some people are not bad. They're simply not aligned with your path. They don't share your values, your goals, your spiritual direction. Holding on to them forces you off your path. Losing them brings you back to it. Allah knows your heart. Allah knows your future. Allah knows what strengthens your soul and what destroys it. Trust His decisions over your attachments. Instead of asking, why did they leave? Ask, what is Allah protecting me from? What is Allah preparing me for? What lesson is Allah teaching me? Because every removal is a lesson. A lesson in tawakkul, trusting Allah. A lesson in detachment, letting go of what isn't yours. A lesson in emotional strength, standing firm on your own. A lesson in self-worth, valuing yourself even when others don't. A lesson in spiritual maturity, knowing that Allah's plan is better than your desire. When someone leaves your life, you don't lose anything. Allah decreed for you. And what He takes away, He replaces with something better. Better peace, better clarity, better people, better direction, but only if you let go. Stop chasing people. Start chasing Allah. The world will fall into place when your heart does. Being alone teaches you discipline. And discipline is one of the rarest qualities today, because most people only behave well when someone is watching them. They pray when they're reminded. They work only when others push them. They stay consistent only when they're motivated. They avoid sins only when they fear being caught. This means their entire life is built on external pressure, not internal strength. But the real test of sincerity, character, and faith happens in solitude, when it's just you, your choices, and Allah. When no one is checking on you, no one praising you, no one holding you accountable, that is when your true self appears. Who are you in private? What do you choose when you think no one sees you? Do you still pray? Do you still control your tongue? Do you still protect your eyes, your heart, your intentions? Or do you fall apart the moment the world turns its back? This is why Allah sometimes puts you in situations where you're alone, not to break you, but to reveal you, to show you where you truly stand spiritually, not the version of you that the world sees, the version only Allah knows. In solitude, you discover whether you worship Allah or you worship attention. You discover whether your good deeds are for His sake or for the eyes of people. You discover whether your habits are genuine or simply performed for approval. It's easy to be righteous when people are watching. It's easy to stay disciplined when your reputation is on the line. It's easy to control yourself when others expect it from you. But what about when you're completely alone? Do you still remember Allah? Do you still guard your prayers? Do you still hold yourself back from sin? Do you still protect your peace and your conscience? Solitude exposes your weaknesses, and that is a gift, not a punishment. You cannot fix what you don't see. When you're always surrounded by people, their presence hides the cracks in your character. The noise covers the whispers of your heart. The company distracts you from the truth about yourself. But when you're alone, everything becomes clear. You see your habits for what they are. You see your self-control for what it truly is or is not. You realize that some of the discipline you thought you had was actually borrowed from the people around you. And when they're gone, the borrowed discipline collapses. That collapse is painful, but it's also your chance to build real discipline, the kind that comes from sincerity, not pressure. Private discipline is the foundation of public honor. Private purity is the foundation of public success. Allah rewards the deeds done in secret far more than the deeds done in front of others. Why? Because the ones done in secret come from the heart. If you pray alone, it means you aren't praying for validation. If you avoid sin alone, it means you aren't avoiding it for reputation. If you control your anger alone, it means you aren't performing it for show. This is why Allah elevates the people who improve themselves in solitude. Their sincerity shines where no human eye can see. Their discipline grows where no applause reaches. And here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. If you cannot control yourself when you're alone, you will never survive when Allah tests you publicly. Because public tests demand private strength. Public blessings demand private discipline. Public responsibilities demand private honesty. If the inside is weak, the outside will eventually break. This is why Allah isolates you to strengthen your inner world before He expands your outer world. He removes the distractions so you can build habits that don't depend on anyone. He slows down your life so you can fix your foundation before constructing bigger goals. He puts you in quiet seasons so you can learn to manage your emotions, your desires, your routines, your time without relying on anyone to push you. Many people waste their solitude by complaining about it. They don't realize that solitude is the training ground from which the strongest believers emerge. Solitude teaches you consistency without encouragement, patience without witnesses, humility without applause, and discipline without pressure. And these qualities are what allow a person to rise, grow, and transform. Solitude also forces you to develop inner leadership. You stop relying on the world to motivate you. You begin to hold yourself accountable. You set your own goals. You get up because you choose to, not because someone else is watching. You stop waiting for reminders because you become your own reminder. You stop needing validation because you develop self-respect rooted in your connection with Allah. This is the moment your heart matures. When you learn to govern yourself in private, you become undefeatable in public. People come and go, but your discipline stays. Motivation comes and goes, but your consistency stays. Challenges rise and fall, but your strength remains rooted because it was built in silence, not in the noise. If you want Allah to elevate you, you must become someone who behaves the same in private as you do in public. Someone who worships sincerely, someone who seeks purity without audience, someone who builds discipline without needing anyone to clap for them. The world sees your actions. Allah sees your intentions. The world sees your performance. Allah sees your heart, and Allah elevates those whose private hearts are pure, disciplined, sincere, and steady. So don't resent the moments when Allah leaves you alone. Use them. Let your solitude shape you. Let it build you into someone whose discipline doesn't collapse when the world goes silent. Let it turn you into the kind of person Allah honors, not because of how you appear, but because of who you truly are. Solitude shatters false attachments, and this is one of the hardest realities for people to accept, because we live in a world where emotional dependence is normalized. People cling to others, sometimes desperately, hoping that another human being can heal wounds that only Allah can heal. They lean on people for comfort, validation, identity, and happiness, and then they wonder why their heart keeps breaking. My brothers and sisters, listen carefully. When you depend on people for what only Allah can give you, you will always end up disappointed. People will leave, people will change, people will forget. People will fail you, not always because they want to, but because they are human. Humans are temporary. Their presence is temporary. Their loyalty is temporary. Their role in your life is temporary. The only one who remains, who doesn't change, who never leaves, who never breaks His promise, is Allah. This is why Allah sometimes takes you through a period of solitude to break the unhealthy attachments you've built and to redirect your heart back to the only attachment that actually sustains you. Most people don't realize how dependent they've become until Allah removes the person they were leaning on. Suddenly their heart collapses, their life feels empty, their mind feels scattered. And the reason is simple. They gave a human a level of importance that only Allah deserves. Your heart was not created to be held by people. Your heart was created to be held by its creator. This is why emotional attachment becomes dangerous when it goes unchecked. It blinds you. It makes you tolerate things you shouldn't tolerate. It makes you chase people who aren't good for your soul. It makes you ignore red flags. It makes you accept disrespect. It makes you lose your individuality. It makes you forget Allah. Attachment becomes a form of emotional slavery when you rely on someone to give you what your Rabb already promised you: peace, comfort, guidance, strength, love, security. Allah wants your heart to rely on Him first. Not because He wants to deprive you of love or companionship, but because He wants to give you relationships that are healthier, purer, and more aligned with your faith and your future. He wants to protect you from the emotional destruction that comes from giving your heart to the wrong person. So, he separates you, he distances you. He dismantles the dependency. He lets the attachment break even if it hurts. And the pain you feel is not punishment, it's detox. Your heart is being cleansed from the illusions it held on to. Remember this, you cannot attach deeply to Allah while you're still attached deeply to people. These two attachments cannot occupy the same space. One will push the other out, and Allah wants to pull you out of anything that lowers your worth, weakens your deen, or damages your peace. Some attachments feel sweet at first, but they slowly corrode your relationship with Allah. You skip prayers, you compromise your values, you lose sleep, you lose self-respect, you lose balance. And the person you're attached to often doesn't even realize the chaos they've caused in your soul. This is why Allah intervenes. He breaks what you refuse to break. He removes what you refuse to walk away from. He ends chapters you were too afraid to close. He saves you from futures you couldn't see. Solitude becomes the place where Allah rebuilds your heart after tearing down what was harming it. In solitude, you begin to see clearly. You realize how much energy you were investing in someone who gave you so little in return. You realize how much your happiness depended on their mood, their messages, their presence. You realize how emotionally vulnerable you were, not in a healthy way, but in a way that made you lose yourself. In solitude, clarity replaces attachment. Strength replaces dependency. Self-respect replaces desperation. Faith replaces fear. And for the first time, you begin to feel whole, not because someone is filling the gaps in your soul, but because Allah is. You begin to appreciate your own company. You begin to find peace in silence. You begin to enjoy moments of reflection. You begin to heal old wounds that were never addressed. And slowly you discover something extraordinary. You don't need people the way you once thought you did. Yes, you want love. Yes, you want companionship. Yes, you want meaningful relationships. That's natural. But you no longer want these things at the cost of your dignity, your mental health, or your relationship with Allah. Allah uses solitude to teach you emotional maturity, the kind that says, I love people, but I don't worship them. I appreciate companionship, but I don't rely on it. I care for others, but I don't lose myself for them. I connect with people, but I attach only to Allah. This is the emotional freedom Allah wants for you. Freedom from neediness. Freedom from desperation. Freedom from expectations that crush your heart. Freedom from chasing people who don't value you. And that freedom comes only when your heart finally rests with Allah. You become stable because your foundation is not a human, it's your Rabb. When someone leaves, you don't collapse. When someone disappoints you, you don't break. When someone pulls away, you don't lose your identity. Because Allah has become the anchor, and everything else is just a blessing, not a lifeline. And here's the beautiful part. When Allah sees that your heart is free from unhealthy attachments, He gives you relationships that don't threaten your soul. He gives you people who lift you, not drain you. People who strengthen your deen, not weaken it. People who respect your boundaries, honor your worth, and treat you with sincerity. Solitude is not the end of love. It's the doorway to the right kind of love, a love that doesn't replace Allah, but fits into your heart after Him. So don't fear the emptiness. It's where Allah fills you. Don't fear the separation. It's where Allah saves you. Don't fear losing people. Fear losing your connection with Allah. When Allah is enough for you, life becomes balanced, relationships become healthier, and your heart becomes unshakable. This is what solitude teaches you if you're willing to let go. You discover your purpose in silence. And this is something most people fail to understand, because they believe purpose comes from movement, from activity, from doing more, meeting more people, chasing more opportunities. But the reality is the opposite. Purpose doesn't come from noise, it comes from clarity. And clarity is born in silence. Think about it. How can a heart hear guidance when it is drowning in opinions? How can a mind recognize direction when it is overwhelmed with distractions? How can a soul understand its mission when it is buried under the expectations of society? Allah gives you silence because He wants to speak to you through it. He wants your heart to wake up. He wants your vision to sharpen. He wants your life to realign with the destiny He wrote for you long before you were born. But you cannot access that guidance if your life is full of noise, full of people, full of pressure, full of unnecessary conversations, full of drama, full of stories that don't belong to you. That's why Allah isolates you. Not because He wants to remove you from life, but because He wants to remove you from everything blocking your real life. Most people never discover who they truly are because they are constantly surrounded by influences shaping them. The crowd becomes their identity. The environment becomes their personality. Society becomes their purpose. They don't know what they want. They only know what they've been told to want. But when Allah takes away the crowd even temporarily, you begin to hear yourself again. In silence, you ask questions you've avoided for years. What am I doing with my life? What actually matters to me? What sins have I normalized? What habits are destroying me? What gifts has Allah given me that I'm ignoring? What opportunities has Allah placed in front of me that I keep overlooking? What version of myself have I become, and is it the version Allah wants? These questions are uncomfortable, but the answers unlock your purpose. And here's the truth. Purpose isn't always loud and dramatic. It doesn't always look like a dream job or a life-changing project or a massive achievement. Sometimes your purpose is simply to return to Allah with a cleaner heart, a wiser mind, and a stronger soul. Sometimes your purpose is one deed, one change, one moment of sincere tawbah that transforms your entire future. But you won't see that moment while you're lost in the noise. Allah gives you silence as a gift, but most people reject it. They fear it because silence forces them to confront the parts of themselves they've been running from. They don't want to sit with their regrets. They don't want to face their flaws. They don't want to acknowledge the sins they've been burying under distractions. They don't want to admit that their life has drifted away from Allah. So instead of facing the truth, they keep the volume of life high. They keep busy. They keep chasing. They keep scrolling. They keep filling their schedule so they never have to sit alone with their conscience. But Allah loves you too much to let you drown in noise forever. So He stops your life, slows it, pauses it, reduces the people around you, softens the world until it goes quiet. And in that quiet, your heart begins to wake up. Silence is where Allah brings every buried thing to the surface, not to shame you, but to save you. He shows you your wounds so you can finally heal them. He shows you your misguidance so you can return to Him. He shows you your wasted potential so you can start using it. And then slowly, purpose begins to take shape. You start realizing that some dreams you had were not yours, they were society's dreams. Some goals you chased were not meant for you, they were people's expectations. Some relationships you held on to were not destiny, they were emotional habits. Some circles you sat in were not aligned with your growth, they were cages disguised as comfort. When the noise fades, you see the truth. You see who you are, who you've become, who you're meant to be, who you must outgrow, what you must leave behind, and what Allah is calling you toward. This is why silence is not empty, it is full of answers. It is full of clarity, full of direction, full of awakening. But clarity does not feel peaceful at first. It feels painful because it forces you to admit things you never wanted to acknowledge. You begin to realize you were living too far from Allah. Your heart was attached to the wrong things. Your habits were weak. Your priorities were misplaced. Your intentions were mixed. Your life was busy but spiritually empty. And recognizing this hurts, but this pain is the beginning of your purpose. Allah breaks your illusions to reveal your truth. He removes your distractions to reveal your potential. He silences your world to reveal your mission. And here's the most beautiful part. Once Allah gives you clarity in silence, He starts opening doors you didn't even know existed. Opportunities appear not from people, but from Allah. Paths open not because someone helped you, but because Allah guided you. Your life realigns not through effort alone, but through divine mercy. When you understand your purpose, your life becomes simpler. Your priorities shift. Your heart becomes lighter. Your decision becomes clearer. Your boundaries become stronger. Your connection with Allah becomes deeper. Your dunya becomes balanced. Your akhirah becomes the center of everything. But none of this happens without silence, without reflection, without facing yourself honestly. Allah calls you into solitude because He wants to rewrite your life from the inside out. He wants to teach you things the world cannot teach. He wants to strengthen you in ways people cannot offer. He wants to prepare you for levels people cannot handle. He wants to give you blessings people cannot take credit for. Your purpose begins where the noise ends. Your clarity begins where people fade. Your guidance begins where your ego breaks. Your true life begins where Allah becomes the one you turn to in silence. So don't reject the quiet moments. Don't escape solitude. Don't fear being alone. Your entire destiny may be waiting in the silence you're trying to avoid. What happens after you grow alone is extraordinary. Most people don't even realize the transformation until they look back and realize, I'm not who I used to be. And I'm grateful for it. But to reach that point, you have to walk through the silence, the separation, the loneliness, the discipline, the self-reflection. Once you pass through that stage, Allah releases a version of you that you never knew existed, stronger, wiser, calmer, more grounded, more connected to Him. It is in solitude that Allah upgrades you internally so that your external life can change in ways you never imagined. Let me tell you something important. When you come out of that season of growing alone, you don't return as the same person. You return with a completely redesigned heart. A heart that no longer breaks the same way. A heart that no longer attaches the same way. A heart that no longer fears the same things. A heart that no longer depends on people for what only Allah can give. You step back into life with a different level of emotional maturity. You start valuing things that people overlook. You start ignoring things that used to disturb you. You start walking away from things you once begged for. You stop chasing the world. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop apologizing for having boundaries. You stop explaining yourself to people who were never meant to understand you. This is the transformation Allah gives to those who grow in silence. One of the most powerful changes that happens is this. Your standards rise dramatically, not out of arrogance, not out of ego, but out of clarity. You finally understand your worth as someone created by Allah, guided by Allah, protected by Allah. You no longer tolerate disrespect. You no longer accept half-hearted love. You no longer let people drain your energy. You no longer allow the wrong influences to shape your life. And this shift alone changes everything. You start attracting better people, better opportunities, better relationships, better outcomes. Why? Because you became better inside. Allah does not elevate someone externally until they have been elevated internally. When Allah sees you strengthening your heart, purifying your intentions, aligning your life with His guidance, He lifts you, He opens doors. He replaces what you lost with what is better. He gives you what you once prayed for, but now in a way that doesn't jeopardize your deen or your peace. But this level of blessing requires separation first. It requires refinement. It requires solitude. You had to lose some things because those things couldn't go with you where Allah was taking you. You had to lose some people because they were connected to an older version of you that no longer exists. If they stayed, they would limit your growth, dilute your faith, distract your heart, or slow your progress. Allah removes what cannot follow your next chapter, and He gives you what aligns with your purpose, your faith, and your future. When you grow alone, something else happens. Your relationship with Allah becomes deeper, more intimate, more sincere. You make dua differently, you repent differently, you reflect differently, you rely on Allah internally, not emotionally. And this reliance becomes the foundation of your strength. When hardship strikes again, and it will, because this life is a test, you don't panic the way you used to. You don't collapse the way you once did. You don't fall apart just because someone disappointed you. You don't question your entire worth because of a temporary loss. You don't crumble under pressure. Why? Because solitude taught you to rely on Allah as your anchor, not people. You become someone who says, if it leaves, it wasn't written for me. If it stays, it's a gift from Allah. Allahu kana salam. If it changes, it's part of His plan. If it hurts, it's meant to purify me. If it's delayed, it's preparing me. If it's given, it's from His mercy. This is spiritual maturity. And you only get it by growing alone. But the transformation doesn't stop there. You begin to sense your emotional boundaries more clearly. You no longer tolerate internal chaos. You no longer allow yourself to go back to environments where you were shrinking. You no longer force relationships that don't honor your dignity. You no longer beg for acceptance that costs you your peace. Growing alone teaches you that peace is priceless. And once you taste peace with Allah, you refuse to accept anything that threatens it. You also start recognizing red flags faster. The old, you would ignore them. The new, you respect your own intuition. You value your soul enough to walk away early instead of healing from disasters later. You understand that not everyone is meant to have access to your heart. You protect your deen. You protect your mind. You protect your emotional space. This is maturity. It wasn't born from comfort. It was born from isolation. Another incredible change is how you handle relationships. You become more intentional. You stop choosing people out of loneliness. You choose them out of alignment. You don't join circles for fun. You join circles that elevate your character. You don't chase friendships for attention. You seek friendships built on sincerity and faith. You don't search for love to fill a void. You look for love that aligns with your values and brings you closer to Allah. Your life becomes more selective and therefore more blessed. And here's the final powerful change. You gain a new sense of independence, not the arrogant kind, but the spiritual kind. You become emotionally self-responsible. You don't wait for someone to fix you. You don't expect someone to save you. You don't rely on anyone to validate your worth. Your stability comes from your connection with Allah. This kind of independence is rare, and Allah gives it only to those He prepares through periods of isolation. Growing alone turns you into someone who is unshakable, someone who walks through life with humility, clarity, and faith, someone who doesn't break easily, someone who doesn't fear the future, someone who trusts Allah's timing, Allah's decisions, Allah's wisdom. When you grow alone, you become someone who can stand strong even when the world around you is unstable, because your heart is anchored to the one who never changes. So if you have gone through that season or you are in it right now, understand this. You are not being punished. You are being transformed. You are not being isolated. You are being prepared. You are not being abandoned. You are being elevated. Allah is making you into a version of yourself that the old you could never become. And when you return from that solitude, you return unstoppable by Allah's permission. Ya Allah, we ask you from the depths of our hearts, grant us the strength to accept the seasons of solitude you place us in. Cleanse our hearts from unhealthy attachments and replace them with love for you alone. Purify our intentions, our thoughts, and our desires. Fill our moments of loneliness with your mercy, your light, and your presence. Ya Allah, guide us to the path that brings us closer to you. Protect us from people, habits, and environments that harm our souls. Open for us doors of clarity, wisdom, and purpose. Make us among those who rise after being broken, who grow after being tested, and who find peace only in remembering you. Ya Allah, strengthen our iman, soften our hearts, and forgive our sins, the ones we hide, the ones we forget, and the ones only. Grant us a future filled with goodness, halal companionship, sincere friendships, and blessings that elevate our dunya and our akhirah. Ya Allah, make every difficulty a means of our purification, every separation a means of our growth, and every moment of silence a doorway to your guidance. Rabbana taqabbal minna. Rabbana la tutsai klubana. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adhaban nar. Amen.